Welcome. My name is Christopher Peter. My Philadelphia Eagles laid an egg to open up Week 6 of the 2025 NFL season. They are obviously struggling once again to adapt to a new offensive coordinator who is new to calling plays and scheming the offensive game plan. On this team, there is not much opportunity to learn on the job. The fans have high expectations, and the talent is there for contention. Obviously they must have left that talent and their fundamentals in Philly because it clearly was not on display in the Meadowlands. They simply did not compete after the first half and just seemed to not push back against a Giants team that outplayed their talent. 2 games in 5 days equal 2 losses in games that they should have won. Instead they let the Giants win their Super Bowl. With all the celebrations and gloating, the Giants are a last-place team still. That is the funny reality, that they celebrated winning like it was the Super Bowl. But at the end of the week, the Eagles still cling to the division lead and the Giants are still the bottoms of the East. But Jackson Dart and Scatterboo showed their fans why they should have hope for the future. Still, there should be hope for us Eagles fans. The loss to the Bucs was probably much worse of a feeling than this one. And there are still plenty of games left to correct the course. There is plenty of talent on the offense and the young defense is still growing, which bodes well for the future. Nick Sirianni and the rest of the coaches need to do a much better job of putting them in a better position to use their talent. The offensive play calling is too predictable and petulant. They need to afford our stars more options if the defense is able to sniff out what may be coming up, allowing Jalen to audible or adapt. That is not the cause. The players have to execute better as well. They simply miss too many blocks or Jalen does not release the ball when there are some reported opportunities. It will not always be easy and we cannot expect them to win every game. There will be games every year that we see them lose and scratch our heads. Remember the Falcons game? Luckily, the Eagles were able to navigate their way out of that mess and find a path to another Super Bowl victory. The Eagles benefited from a team that had a blend of up-and-coming youths with experienced veterans to set the standard that guided the team. Players were team first and knew their roles and performed them to perfection by the end. My question is whether players understand their roles on this offense, what their expectations are and how the plays are supposed to play out. Maybe players have lost their fundamentals a bit where they are not doing the little things that make the biggest difference. While many compare the situation to the 2023 team, it may be more like the 2018 team, where the team was plagued with players that lost focus and free agents who forget the fact that they were not on the championship roster. All the entitlement, not of the real equity in the past result. Many times, we see our free agents that have a high upside perform well more times than not. Other than Devin White, almost every free agent last year performed well. Zach Braun was an all-pro and Becton resurrected his career, earning a sizable deal with the Los Angeles Chargers. So far, this year's free agent class has been underwhelming. Adoree Jackson has not played well. Some of the new or returning players on the offensive line are simply not up to the standard from the recent years. And we have already seen one deciding to call it a career. The return on investment from the cap dollars to the fans' engagement has not been there yet. Does not mean it will not get there. The reality that we knew going into the season was that this year would look differently. That is the case every year in the NFL. But the reality when you once again change a major member of the coaching staff, Kellen Moore may not have fully implemented his brand of offense, but the mix worked. Hopefully, Kevin Patchello and the rest of the offensive staff is able to find an identity or a style of play that can allow it to be more efficient and able to sustain drives, help our young defense from spending more than their fair share on the field. The last 2 undefeated teams in the league have both lost their last 2 games. The Eagles had a short week, but the Buffalo Bills had an extra day of preparation and were not able to get up for the road game against the Atlanta Falcons. This season is clear that the pendulum has swung from great teams dominating each week to a season where any given Sunday, any team can beat any other team. Contenders can look like pretenders and those cast off as early defectives can resurrect their seasons. The Kansas City Chiefs made a great stand against the Detroit Lions, giving fans some hope that the team may be back to their normal form, ahead of the return of their suspended wide receiver. They did a great job of controlling the game against the Lions, who simply could not repeat their previous victory at Arrowhead. The Lions simply made too many mistakes and could not sustain much against the Chiefs' defense that was not going to sit around and let the Lions embarrass them like Detroit did to the Baltimore Ravens. Only the second loss of the season, but brings them down a bit in the NFC North. The reason is because the Green Bay Packers faced the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Flacco and were able to hold on for a victory following a loss then a tie. The Bengals made it close for a team that has been without its leader since week 1, but the talented Packers won out. The Miami Dolphins are having a long season for a team that is struggling this season. They did make it close and held a late lead in the game, but the Los Angeles Chargers were able to come back and beat the Dolphins on a late field goal. Following the game, Tua was a bit more honest than his coach preferred. I guess with the Buffalo Bills losing again, the New England Patriots are technically in first place. Following the beating of the Bills, the Patriots beat the New Orleans Saints to put themselves into a tie for first, but hold the tiebreaker for now. Drake May is playing great lately and the Patriots' fans are starting to get their smugness back. The Cleveland Browns may be closer to seeing Shedeur Sanders' debut as they are running out of quarterbacks but have more than their fair share of losses. The Browns traded Flacco to the Bengals, which Mike Tomlin questioned, following a trade of Kenny Pickett to the Raiders. The Browns are simply not protecting whoever is their quarterback. The Steelers win again and seem destined to win the AFC North, as their division foes are struggling mightily. The gap continues to widen. The Colts definitely had the worst player luck but still won their game. They saw their backup former first-round quarterback in Anthony Richardson suffer an injury during a pre-game workout, then saw a starting corner collide with a teammate. 2 players missing this game and potentially more. Such a weird situation. But they still came away with the win. Hopefully both players get back soon. The Cowboys continue to struggle to find consistency. Cowboys fans are just as mad at their defense coordinator as Eagles fans are mad at our offensive coordinator. The Panthers continue to show improvement. They have 2 foundational wins now that they can build off of. The Falcons, who dominated the Bills, could not score in their home. The 49ers finally lost a game under Mac Jones, but the biggest loss was Fred Warner, who is out for the season. The team continues the trend of players lost for the season, which is highly unfortunate. They talk a lot, but play very hard. The Bucs finally won a game without the need for late-game heroics. It must have been awkward taking the victory formation rather than needing a field goal. I think we may need to reconsider how good the Seahawks may be. There is all this talk about teams crossing the country and struggling. Not the Seahawks. They went on probably one of the longest road trips by distance and won. Sam Darnold seems to have shown that the New York Jets experience was more about that team than his play. The New York Jets are still winless after crossing the ocean and losing to the Denver Broncos. Changing culture is not always an overnight affair. Sometimes there are ingrained attitudes and hereditary behaviors that continue to exist. Some players may be all too comfortable over the years of playing a certain way and have yet to fully adapt to what Aaron Glenn expects. And he cannot fire them all. Can he? The Ravens only scored 3 points, and continue to only have 1 win. The same record as the Browns, who seem rudderless. The Bengals, who are without their starting quarterback, as well have 2 wins, gifting the Steelers a 3-game lead. We know that the Bengals will be without Burrow for most of the season. The Ravens have to hope Jackson can bounce back soon. Now, let us pick the games for next week, which I started off really well picking games, but not so much recently. 4 correct picks each week for the first 3 and a total of 3 in the last 2 weeks. So I need to do better. My first pick this week is the Detroit Lions beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home at Ford Field. The Bucs are playing great football with their only loss to my Eagles, but I think Detroit will be able to get its swagger back at home in front of their fans. The Bucs play consistently home or away under Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield. That Lions offense may be too much. The Atlanta Falcons are coming off their biggest win of the season, and they will need to take advantage of the Bucs having a much healthier and fierce opponent on the road. They need to handle the depleted 49ers, who have lost a great deal of their star players. The Falcons have been shut out this season, but this can be a make-up ground week for them, and I picked them to do just that. The Chargers will host the hottest team in football right now in the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 5-1 with an exciting brand of football. The Chargers started off the season hot, beating their entire division before a 2-game slide. If the Chargers want to change their perception and really show football fans they are a legitimate contender, this is the game to do it, and I picked them to win at home. The closest battle this weekend will be between the 4-2 Jacksonville Jaguars and the 4-2 Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are a favorite in the NFC, and the Jaguars are not too far from their thrilling victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. This will be a London game, meaning we will have to enjoy football with our breakfast. I picked the Rams to be a slight victor over the Jags. Someone has to win their second game of the season. The Cleveland Browns know with just the 2 rookies at quarterback will take on the Miami Dolphins that seem to be a shell of the potential contenders they once were. Someone has to win. I will be bold and say that Dylan Gabriel will get his first win of the season. A famous quote from the great Iron Mike Tyson is that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. For Tyson, he was always able to take a hit and fight his way to a quick finish of his opponent. So even if that punch made him question his plan, he was able to adapt and succeed regardless of any doubt or reconsideration that existed. For my Eagles and the Bills, these 2 previously undefeated teams that lost the past 2 games, it may not be what the fans, the players, or the coaches planned for or expected. The Giants are still in the basement of the East. The Bills have the reigning MVP and have beaten teams with greater perceived talent than either the Patriots or the Falcons. The Eagles have to rebound in some manner by resuscitating their offense and becoming more dynamic and less predictable. My focus would be to truly understand why they are unable to make the offense flow and handle what the defense gives them. But maybe they also need to just take a step back and remember what they have available to them. Let the talent shine. I like the mentality that Sirianni brings to the team. The steady leadership and deflecting blame from any one individual. Focusing on solutions, not problems. And the fact that he listens to his players and embraces the challenge with the coaches is hopeful. Kevin Patullo has shown moments, which he just needs to grow. We see glimpses. Doing better on first downs and reducing the penalties will go a long way in opening up the offense. They are predictable because they are in second and third and long all too much. Getting more manageable downs earlier will help keep the defense guessing. Much seems to lie on the ability for the offensive line to get healthy and to be able to dominate consistently. Landon and Lane have both missed time because of injury. So, hopefully we can get them back to health enough to make it through games and play as close to normal as possible. They have played a lot of football over the last 4 years. Injuries are unfortunately a reality of the sport. For the Bills, they need to improve on the defensive side and be able to stop some teams. Their offense seems fine, but just did not play well enough on Monday night on the road. But if you continue to allow opposing teams to rack up first downs, then you are not going to win many games. The biggest challenge is that the slide has given life to their division rival in the New England Patriots, whose fans will start to think that the good times are back. But if the Bills get back on track following their bye, then the Patriots fans will come back to reality that Belichick and Brady are no longer employed in Foxborough. For a team like the New York Jets, it may seem bleak, but you have to hold out some hope that this season can lay the foundation for future seasons like what happened in Detroit. Dan Campbell was not looking that great in year one, but built a culture over time to reverse the fortunes of the Lions. The hope was not to be winless at this point, but sometimes success and change is not linear. Do not give up if you feel the plan is the right approach. Plans do not always go as intended, especially when adversity hits. But you either trust in the plan and try to persevere, or you change course to some degree to find the success needed. That is what many teams will need to do at this point in the season to prevent the rest of the schedule to simply be auditions for the future. I think it is important to be able to acknowledge reality and what is true. The historic peace agreement that President Donald Trump achieved this past week was a significant foreign policy success, and that it is a global moment that hopefully will shift the region from constant tensions to a path of peace and cooperation. Promises made and promises kept. President Trump promised to be a peacekeeping president. He mentioned it during his inaugural address, stating that he wanted his legacy to be as a peacekeeper, and he has made many significant achievements to cement that legacy during this second term. Brought to an end many regional conflicts. But the question remained whether the two big global conflicts would be solved. At least one is on the path to peace, and the other has the potential eventually for peace at some point. I think you have to give credit where credit is due. Rather than talking abstractly about the possibility of peace to the media or speeches in front of supporters, Trump actually engages to forge a path forward, or at least brings out the asks. Monday was a great moment in the history of the world, where potentially there is some hope for peace in a region that has seen generations of war, division, and terrorism. The return of the remaining hostages marks the end of the 2-year-long conflict that followed the horrific terrorist attack by Hamas. Too many lives of innocent Israelis were lost at the hands of a hateful radical ideology that wishes for death and destruction for the good in the world. A stark reminder of the dangers that exist because of generational hate that is passed down from generation to generation. The Biden approach to foreign policy seemed to be choosing a side and hoping to speak away the other side, never really engaged the events as ones that could be ended through negotiation. The Europeans kind of do the same, as we saw they were about to jump off the moral cliff before Trump saved them. Completely siding with the party that embraced terrorism was not the right approach at all, but it seemed like European leaders were ready to do just that. Now, the focus can be proceeding to maintain the path to peace in the Middle East, and then to shift on ending the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. There is at least some dialogue that took place. While you might not be able to trust Russian President Vladimir Putin, there is a need to engage to see if there is a deal to be had. Acting on assumptions is usually not the best form of leadership. At least have the conversations and see where everyone is at, and is there a path forward or a point of leverage to forge some form of a deal. Set aside the partisanship and realize that is the right approach to foreign policy. That is how you can avoid these never-ending conflicts. We have the potential to experience peace that did not seem realistic at this point last year, and we have to be grateful to have leadership that is moving the needle in the right direction.
The people that are not willing to acknowledge the truth are showing our society their true colors and giving Americans a clear view of what side is for actual progress and results, and what side is focused on themselves and regaining power that they misused. bringing peace to the Middle East and reuniting those individuals stolen from their homes and families by terrorist thugs, bringing closure and justice for the families whose loved ones were taken by these horrible people, and reducing the influence of the biggest sponsor of terror in the region is a major feat and accomplishment that has the potential to positively benefit so many in that area of the world. An important week in our world's history. Hopefully we have another moment where we can see the war in Ukraine end and the killing stopped. We want a world at peace. But it will not come by simply hoping for it. The willingness to engage and negotiate terms is important. The ability to show resolve and strength is also important. Thank you for experiencing this episode of the Christopher Peter podcast, part of the Christopher Peter Review. Your viewership is appreciated and valued. Please follow the Christopher Peter Review on social media and continue to visit www.crcreview.com for new episodes of the Christopher Peter podcast and the CRC. Thank you once again. Until next time.